Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife.
For many years now, The Jungle Book is well recognized among audiences for being one of the most iconic animated movies created by Walt Disney Studios. Many who have grown up with this film know it best for its memorable songs and charming characters. Yet what very few of them seem to truly understand or know about is the source material upon which the film was originally based. The famous adventures of Mowgli, the orphan boy who grows up among the animals in the jungles of India, are, in fact, drawn from a few stories in a collection of animal tales written by British author Rudyard Kipling. In contrast to the lighthearted spirit and tone of the animated movie, Kipling's original stories, published in 1894, are much more mature and dark, dealing with themes of identity and power. In the context of his tales, Kipling uses the characters and situations as a way to strongly comment on the rise of British imperialism in the country of India.
Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror, and to check the show of pride, by open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit, and work another's gain.
Despite being British, Rudyard Kipling was born in India during the mid-1800s. During this period, the British were colonizing Asia and Africa as a means of expanding their power, similar to what the United States would later do in Cuba, the Philippines, and Guam. In response to the Treaty of Paris that had followed the Spanish-American War in 1898, Kipling wrote his most famous poem, The White Man's Burden. When he finished it the following year, he sent it to President Theodore Roosevelt in order to both warn him about the hardships of sustaining an empire and to make America take up the burden, just as the British had done in India. In The White Man's Burden, young British soldiers are sent away to live in Africa and Asia so they can learn how to be men. In order to do so, these soldiers have to look after the native people, presented as sullen, childish, and demonic, by providing them with food and water and ending their poverty and disease. These soldiers also have to be patient, frank, brave, and respectful, and not live a life of freedom. Otherwise, these men will become lowly and lazy. To add to their burden, the British will not always receive praise for their actions. Their captors will most likely hate them. Kipling wrote The White Man's Burden because he wanted the United States to understand that taking control of another country is very hard, but you must keep trying if you want to succeed. There are several connections between The White Man's Burden and The Jungle Book. Orphaned as a baby, the story's main protagonist, Mowgli, is adopted by a family of wolves and grows up living in the jungle among the different animals that inhabit it. From them, Mowgli learns how to be patient and honest, and to survive as his companions teach him the law of the jungle. One of the most important aspects of this law is the forbidden hunting of humans.
The law of the jungle, which never orders anything without reason, forbids every beast to eat man. The reason for this is that man-killing means sooner or later that men will come with guns and set the grass alight, and hundreds of men will scour the jungle for the killer with gongs and rockets and torches. Then everybody in the jungle suffers.
Among the various animals who follow the law of the jungle are the Siamese wolf pack, who view themselves as the free people, Baloo, the wise bear who teaches Mowgli and the wolf cubs, and the elephants, who are revered by many as the creators and lords of the jungle. Both the edict against hunting men and the high positions of the creatures who follow it suggest that the human village outside of the jungle symbolizes the British Empire. The animals that obey the law represent the Indian rulers and officers who are able to accept British rule. Furthermore, Mowgli is like the British soldiers sent to India. He is born of a dignified race, but he learns about nobility and honor by living with uncivilized creatures that follow their own codes.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to to wait in heavy harness, unfluttered folk and wild, your new caught sullen peoples, half devil and half child.
However, the one creature who never obeys the law is the story's main antagonist, Shere Khan.
How you've grown.
Shere Khan has broken the law multiple times by stealing cattle from the village as prey and killing humans for pleasure, just as there were some Indians who fought against the British. The results that followed were death and suffering.
Should we issue a warning, sir?
The half-devil, half-child natives referred to in The White Man's Burden are represented in the Jungle Book as the Banderlog, the monkey tribe that lives in a city of ancient ruins. These monkeys claim that they are the most powerful animals in the jungle, but they follow no law. They are really liars and thieves who do not know how to think. They kidnap Mowgli and take him to their village so he can show them how to be human. This is similar to how the British soldiers have to look after Indian natives, who are depicted in the poem as unruly and maniacal. The only other creature in the Jungle Book that best fit Kipling's description of lowly natives in his poem is Tabaki, Shere Khan's jackal accomplice who travels alongside the tiger in order to find food. Eventually, some of the younger wolves from the pack become just like Tabaki. As Akela, the pack's leader, grows old and unable to hunt, Shere Khan begins to manipulate the younger wolves and turn them against Mowgli by offering them scraps of his prey and flattery.
Please help yourselves. It is an honor to share my catch with such noble members of the pack. It amazes me. How is it that such brave and experienced hunters as yourselves are led by one so feeble as Akela?
Later on, the young wolves join Shere Khan as he convinces them that Mowgli does not belong in the pack. These traitorous wolves are similar to both the British officers who chose to live a lowly life and the natives who hate the British. In conclusion, both the relationship between the man village and the jungle and the roles of the story's characters strongly demonstrate that while some Indians were able to follow British authority, others refused to be governed by it.
Everyone forgets how the law works. Well, let me remind you, man is forbidden!
Take up the white man's burden, and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard, the cry of hosts ye humour, slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night?
The significance of this particular line is that it refers to the story of Moses standing up to the Pharaoh of Egypt and leading his fellow Hebrews to freedom. Kipling was surprised by how the Filipinos had battled the Americans after they invaded their island home. Kipling may have believed that the people of India would eventually overthrow the British, a situation hinted at in the Jungle Book. A character who strongly demonstrates this is Mowgli's closest friend, Bagheera, the Black Panther.
I only heard stories about the jungle. I lived in a king's palace in a cage just like this. I bit and I scratched and I spent my entire life fighting.
As Bagheera grew up, he realized that he was a wild animal and not a house pet, and eventually fought his way out of the palace and escaped into the jungle. This illusion continues in Kipling's sequel, The Second Jungle Book. Near the end of the story, Mowgli leads all the animals into the man village, where they chase away the villagers and destroy their homes in a manner similar to the 10 plagues destroying Egypt in the Exodus story. Beyond the adventures of Mowgli and his companions, Kipling used animal symbolism to represent the idea of standing up against imperialist authority in his other Jungle Book tales. In Rikki-Tikki Tavi, a pet mongoose is the only animal in his owner's garden that is brave enough to face the 2 cobras that rule the yard. In Tumai of the Elephants, the son of an elephant driver frees his father's elephant, Kalanog, on a night when all captured elephants break free from captivity to participate in a secret dance. But perhaps the story that tells of defying authority with the strongest symbolism is the White Seal. The tale centers upon Kotick, a young seal who travels to find a new island for all the seals to live upon, where they won't be hunted by men. Similar to the stories about Mowgli, the differences in both appearance and personality between Kotick and the other seals represent the racially suggested differences between the British and the Indians. Whereas most of the seals are brown-skinned and presented as being lazy and violent, just as the British authorities viewed the Indians, Kotick is born with white skin and has a more courageous personality and a sense of duty, similar to that of a British soldier. And just as the British could use violence to assert their control over India, Kotick has to fight against the other seals in order to force them to follow him.
I've done my best for you these 5 seasons past. I've found the island where you'll be safe from man, but unless your silly heads are dragged off your silly necks, you simply won't believe. So I am going to teach you now. Look out for yourself.
Kotick is not the only character in the White Seal who represents the soldiers of Britain. The humans who hunt the seals for their fur symbolize the violence of the British and the suffering it brought for many Indians. Taking this into consideration, both Kotick's journey of finding safety from the hunters and the way Mowgli leads the animals against the villagers offer an interesting implication. The one who will lead the people of India to freedom against Britain's rule is a British soldier who was born or raised among Indians. While Kotick's story ends on a positive note as he and the other seals are able to live their lives in peace, each adventure in Mowgli's own story arc ends differently. Though Mowgli manages to drive Shere Khan and his followers out of the wolf pack's territory, he still has to leave the jungle and live in the village because he is a human with an unnatural ability to use fire. After Mowgli succeeds in finally killing Shere Khan, the villagers force him out, as they believe him to be a sorcerer who can communicate with the animals. In the end, Mowgli chooses again to leave the jungle and live with his adoptive human family in another town. All of this suggests that Kipling may have written Mowgli's struggles of finding his identity both among the animals and the humans as a way to say that no matter how hard they try, the British would never be able to truly integrate into Indian society, or the Indians integrate into British society.
I'm not a man, but neither am I a wolf.
Bringing into consideration the differences between Kipling's original text and Disney's reimagining of the tale demonstrates that a strong analysis of the context of the book and the time period in which it was written is required in order to reveal and truly understand the background behind the movie. While the animated film has become a popular title in Disney's lineup that will likely be remembered for many years in the future, the original story offers a fascinating commentary on the unfairness and oppression brought upon the people of India by British rule.